Adam Morrison here. When it comes to top-tier contracting, my go-to choice is McGillivray Environmental. They're not just any contractor, they're the best in Spokane and North Idaho. With years of experience, they handle it all. New construction, meticulous repairs, and asphalt overlays. From start to finish, they ensure your project is completed with the highest quality end results. And here's the scoop for this year. McGillivray Environmental has expanded its services to include asphalt paving. That means top-notch commercial parking lots, residential driveways, and road construction. So, ready to kickstart your project? Reach out to Kip at McGillivray Environmental by calling 208-556-6384 for your free estimate. Don't forget to mention my name, Adam from the Perimeter, and experience the difference that McGillivray Environmental brings to the table. Again, that's 208-556-6384, McGillivray Environmental. My number one choice for all my contracting needs. The Perimeter would like to thank our sponsor, HDG Architecture. HDG is a Spokane-based architectural firm whose aesthetic can be described as an understatement of badassery, an idea that sets the standard for their approach to every client and every project decision. The world is full of poorly designed spaces, and HDG wants to change that. Check out some of their award-winning work at studiohdg.com. Welcome to the final episode of Season 3, Episode 21, presented by McGillivray Environmental, The Perimeter. 9 straight Sweet 16, so I guess we got that going for us.
Totally.
I got Brendan, the producer, is going to help us out, recap kind of the season a little bit on who I think did well, blah, blah, blah. Looking forward a little bit to next year. Obviously, it's very fluid now with transfer portal. And then we'll get into, fewy rumors with Kentucky, which I don't think are that serious, but it's something worth talking, worth discussing, and just the overall vibe of the season. Obviously, Purdue, UConn ended up kind of where I thought I was going to end up with UConn winning. They were the strongest team I saw all year. Obviously, we played them at Climate Pledge, in December or something like that, something like that. And this is not a knock on our guys, but about 8 minutes in, I was like, we're probably not going to win this game. They were really good, and you could see just the style and defense that they play, and their guards are big, and that Klingon kid, they're big as a legitimate pick and dive NBA type, protect the rim, moves well. His numbers are not even near what Edey is, and people, well, why can't Edey play? Because watch how they both move, and I'll tell you right there. I mean, It's just how it is, and it's nothing against Edey. I think he'll have a chance to play in the NBA, but where people project him compared to other big like that's 7'1", 7'2", that can move and catch a roll, it's a big difference. But just watching that game, I watched most of it. It wasn't that exciting, was it?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it was pretty. I guess the first half was a little bit better. Yeah. But then UConn just ran away with it.
Yeah. When they hit that 3 to start the second half, and then they go up 9, it's like, this game's over with.
Yeah.
And great season for Purdue. I'm kind of, I'm happy for them in the sense that, they had the deal last year where they lost in the first round, and then they pulled together and made it all the way to the championship game. So, congrats to them. That means in the last 2 years, we've lost to the team that won the national championship and team that made it to the national championship. So, when people kind of complain about us going out in the tournament, it's not like we get upset usually. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're usually the quote unquote underdog during that game, especially according to Vegas. So, I thought it was a great, season overall. The Purdue last game, I thought we hung in there for the most part, considering, kind of where our deficiencies were, I guess, going into that game. We shot it really well against Kansas and felt good about team chemistry and how guys were playing at the time. So going into the Purdue game, honestly, thought we had a puncher's chance. And I'm not just saying like a long shot, but I was like, it's 60-40, right? They're going to be favored. We're going to have to play well. But if we get a good whistle and shoot the ball well, we will win. those two things didn't happen. I thought the whistle wasn't on our side. I don't want to be like everybody else and complain about Edey, but there is some truth to how he gets officiated. It's different. I don't think it's unfair, but it's also difficult because of his size, offensively and defensively, because he dips his shoulder. Everybody does that, but he's so big, so it's more impactful. And then it does look like he drags pivot foot sometimes. But then also, I always like play devil's advocate, and I don't want to ever be a podcast of just us homering for Gonzaga side. There is times, and this happens to him, not just against us, where guys are like trying to shove him off his line. That's a real thing too. So he is getting bumped as well. Just because you're bigger doesn't mean people can dislodge you. Is the terminology off your line or in your space. So going into the game, I was like, Graham's got to play well, which he did. He ended up having 18 and 10. Anton's got to play phenomenal. I thought he played good. We'll talk about him at the end of this deal. He had 14, played good. Nembhard, same thing, good, not great, 14. Nolan Hickman, 16. And what I mean by that, like, we needed somebody to have 25. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like they played bad, but to beat a team like Purdue, we had to kind of play above and beyond our normal expectation. But we shot it well. We shot 49% total for the game. We're only down 4 at half, so I felt pretty good. We ran a lot of DHO, dribble handoff stuff, and screen and rolls. That's what you got to do with Edey and make him move. And I thought Graham was terrific at catching the ball in the wing and just pinging it and running, DHO or sprint ball screens, they call them. So because Edey just plugs naturally, just stays in the paint. Yeah. And we were getting pretty good looks and moving the ball. Didn't shoot it great from 3, especially in the first half, 2 of 9. And then 4-7 in the second, but 6-19 overall, I think. Is that right? No, yeah, 6-19, 2-9, and then 4 for 10 in the first half, 2 of 9 in the second. So either way, it wasn't great. Yeah, I mean, it beginning of that second half when they went on that kind of mini run to start, it was like, it's going to be tough for us. And we had that stretch where we didn't score very well. Yeah. -7 on the glass, that was another issue for us. What I think with the biggest impact on that game, obviously Edey went and got his numbers, 27-14. I talked about it in the previous episode about, kind of letting him get his, or, not just, dogging it, but just play him how you can. And then if he scores, he scores. I think the biggest factor was their backcourt was terrific. Lance Jones, 5 for 10. Braden Smith, 6 for 11, 14 points, 15 assists, only 2 turnovers. Yeah. And then Lawyer, who didn't score against us the first game or didn't make a shot, has 10 points. The game we played in Honolulu. So I think that the biggest difference was the perimeter. And I said that on our last episode. I said I think if those guys get going, it'll be difficult for us to win because then you're adding Edey's numbers. So I think that was the biggest deciding factor was the perimeter guys played well. So, we had a long stretch too where we didn't, score the basketball, and that really killed us. But I thought overall the game plan was correct. I thought our guys executed for the most part in the first half, and then we just had a long stretch where we didn't score. We kind of got leaned on. You know what I mean? It's just like a fighter terminology. Just kind of got leaned on eventually, and by round 8, 9, 10, we were kind of out of gas. Yeah. Right. So totally. I think that was part of it. And, but we knew Purdue was going to be a tough matchup. It's crazy. That's one program we've never beat.
Oh, wow.
We lost to them and on our broadcast, it was like 95 or something like that. And then 99 in one of the tournament runs they beat the piss out of us. The old Gene Katie teams, I think. Oh. And then we haven't beat them in the last 3 times. So it's kind of crazy. It's usually, Gonzaga has one win over like a major deal. Yeah. Right. We've beaten North Carolina. I think, we've beaten Duke. You know what I mean? Like if you keep it on, we've beaten Kentucky. Obviously, if you keep going on, like we at least have one win against a true blue blood. Right. Yeah. Purdue, I don't think is a true blue blood, but in that category of being highly good. But it's one of the teams like, we're like 0-5 against them. That's kind of weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
but terrific year for them. Like I said, it's kind of cool, just from a non-biased standpoint, watching a team like had the adversity they had last year of losing and then getting over that anxiety and making it all the way to the championship game. But
yeah, I was really hoping I could use my stat of them being the second 1 seed to lose the previous year and then go win the national championship.
Oh, yeah.
Like Virginia.
Virginia did it. Yeah.
But yes, I mean, really, I was rooting for Purdue to win. Because I was also like, there's also a stat like we've lost to the past national champions, like so many out of the last 10 years, just because we've been in 2 and then UConn last year. So
yeah,
but
it was interesting. I mean,
the perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Greens, how's everything going today?
Hey, Robert, we're good. Just checking in on that car loan we applied for.
No worries. Let me pull that up. Yep, looks like you're approved and all set.
Hey, that's great news.
So, you headed over to the dealership now?
Yep, just gotta make one stop first.
And we got a great rate, too.
Yeah, but it was interesting. I mean, the vibe in the stadium was mostly Purdue. Obviously, they travel really well. Like, it's a big fan base, and they were loud. And it was just a tough stretch in that second half. I thought the first half we played great, but it was also one of those like, we played pretty good, and we're just still down 4. Down 4 is not the end of the world. We were like, man, I feel like it was like the first game, like we were only up 5. Like, well, we're playing pretty good, and we're only up. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Only up 5, only down 4. Man, shoot, we should be up more. That type of deal. But I thought all in all, it was a good experience. I mean, 9 straight Sweet 16s is unbelievable, especially when it's gone to the field of 68. I mean, there's the other record I think is Carolina has something similar, but one is 32. So you only had to win 1 game. Doesn't mean it's still not remarkable, but winning 2 games in a weekend, especially with the team that everybody thought wasn't even going to make it.
Yeah.
About 6-8 weeks ago, makes a pretty special season in my opinion. I thought our guys really gelled. I thought the Kentucky game was the one that kind of flipped the script, is the term a lot of people use. But
I'd agree with that.
It kind of cemented Ben Gregg being in the starting lineup, and then Graham Ike had a great game, and Nemhard really slowed down and made decisions. You know what I mean? It's just kind of everything formed together, and then we really went on a run and gave us the confidence that we needed. And I thought. If you're looking at 8 weeks ago, a lot of people, pundits, were like, this team's not going to make it. And our staff does a good job of blocking out all the outside noise, and our guys do too, and just keep playing and keep sawing wood. I know that's a cliche as well, but it's a real thing. Some programs don't have that in them to regroup and get going. So, I mean, we got to talk about, I guess, going into the projected roster next year because of the fluidity of college basketball. I know people who listen and follow college basketball, I get tired of hearing transfer portal and NIL because it's just so overused. I mean, it dominates the sport. I mean, but you have to talk about it because every year's is going to be different, and there's guys that leave when you don't think they're going to leave. A la Hunter Silas last year, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you always have to have the discussion of like, who's coming back, who's has a chance to leave, who do you think might leave, or is in that category of you wouldn't be surprised. Not that you want them to leave, but you wouldn't be surprised if they leave, because I think the portal is flawed in the sense that it starts before the season ends technically. So there's like recruiting going on of other players around the country, and this everybody kind of does this, that are not yet done with their seasons. So I think it's kind of flawed in that way.
Yeah, it was very, like, for example, like Michael Ajayi saying he's coming to Gonzaga,
and we weren't even done yet
in the tournament. I'm like, that is odd.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and it happens. I mean, it's just it's where how the calendar lies. So
is it? Oh, it's like a school thing. It's like a
No, it's just the NCAA. You could start it at a certain date, and it's not when the tournament's over or when the season's officially over. So I think I'm not the only one that says this. A lot of coaches and like administrators are like, this is, if we're going to, one thing we could change that's easy, just, it's like free agency in sports.
Right.
Change the date later till after the season so there's no collusion or whatever. Because then you don't know like how invested guys would be if they're getting talked to by another coach. And then, this hasn't been an issue for us, knock on wood. But it like messes up the other tournaments like the NIT and stuff. A lot of programs don't even go to it now because I think they know that some of their guys are like, I'm already checked out, man. I'm out of here.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think it's kind of a shame that they don't participate in that tournament. There's a lot of teams that just say like, we're above this. And it's like, well, don't you want to keep playing hoops? You know what I'm saying? But I understand there's cost and all that, scheduling and all that stuff. It's not as easy as just signing up, right? But also it's just like, so, you had a good year, but you're pissed that you didn't make the tournament, so you're just not going to show up. I don't know. I just kind of dislike that, but I think some of it has to do with guys just being like, I'm not going to play anyway. It's like the bowl game stuff in football, which I understand a little bit more because the potential for injury is greater. But the bowl game stuff now is like if you're not in the playoff, like you see some guys like quarterbacks that don't even show up. You know what I mean?
Right,
You're just like, guys, redshirt freshman's making his first start in the Sugar Bowl, and you're like, what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's so true.
But it has something to do with like the portal is what I'm trying to get at. It's a little bit flawed, but I mean, Nemhard's going to stay, right? Yep. These are my assumptions, right? And I'm not. When I go through these, I don't have any inkling. I'm going to make this clear if anything gets out of context. I don't have any inkling of confirmed guys are leaving, talking to other. This is just me being around the program and my thoughts of what they would be thinking after the season. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's clear, just in case I don't want to ruffle feathers, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm breaking a story or have inside knowledge. I have inside knowledge of a lot of the program, but I don't have on like where guys might be transferring or not transferring.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? But I obviously have a good feel of what, as a former player, like what they would be thinking, and obviously a parent, how they would view that, and then what have you, basketball wise. Nemhard's going to stay at a great season, 12.6 points per game, really turned it around in the second half. Nolan's going to stay, went from 7 points to 14, great jump, had a great season. Proud of the kid. Got a lot of flack from last year not having a great year. It was kind of difficult for him, always throwing it to Drew Timme. That's not a knock on Timme, but when you have a big time scorer, I was a big time scorer, other guys' numbers get hit, and it's not as easy as you think. And it's, people are like, be unselfish. Like, well, yeah, but also like you go to a program to, for your own aspirations too. It's not selfish. It's just reality. So I think it was really nice for him to have a breakout year and play good. Ben Gregg, I think I don't see why he would leave. His role here is terrific. Averaged 9 points, moved into the starting lineup, played a ton, really took off, when they made that change for Dusty Stromer in the starting lineup. So I think his role is cemented, and especially with Anton leaving next year, he'll get those type of more minutes and those opportunities. And he's like a fan favorite here. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people like Ben. He's a charismatic kid. He's tall, good looking. So it's like a lot of people like him. You know what I mean? And part of it is his plays is part of that, and it's just his energy and vibe is good. So like, why would you go somewhere else?
I feel like he's probably also a lock for probably having a lot of more NIL next year.
Yeah,
here in Spokane. So.
That's a great point. We'll talk about NIL possibilities. What that means compared to other programs. Yeah. But that's a great point. Like I think he's kind of the guy that would get like Anton did, and kind of get the NIL dollars or the local dollars. Graham, I don't think he would leave. I don't see why he would. He averaged 16.5, was our main vocal point in the offense. honorable mention, All-American, first team All-League, could have been Player of the Year, blah blah blah. The only difference from Wyoming to here is he played less minutes here, but he was more efficient.
Yeah.
So that's always the counter. Is like, well, you're more efficient, and that looks better, for the next level.
Yeah.
And I think he really his game got expanded because, in the pick and roll stuff, if you watched some of his Wyoming clips, they just had him in plug and he didn't even move. He just stood there.
Yeah.
And I think he understood this year he got challenged and had to be able to switch, multiple ball screen coverage. If you want to play at the next level, you have to do that. And he did that here. So I think he really expanded his game. I think he's going to have a great season next year, because he's comfortable. I think when he understands, I think the only flaw that he has, obviously he's got to work on his outside shot. You can say that about every single big man. He knows that. And it's not terrible. It's just more reps. He's got to, control his emotions a little bit more. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but he gets a little pissed off out there sometimes and creates dumb fouls and, you know what I mean? And then gets himself in an issue where he has to sit. I'm just saying that from a perspective of staying on the floor, like a selfish perspective.
Right.
Like, calm down a little bit, bud. You know what I mean? And I was the same way, but you got to channel it a different way. 'Cause especially now referees, they watch more and there's, the replays and all that stuff. So, it's kind of like the Domus was his freshman year. Domus was like, get really pissed off and go over the back when somebody, you're like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you're so talented, but then you're also like, it's always that give and take. You don't want to pull the reins back too much on that because it's hard. You don't teach that fire and guy, what I mean?
Right,
That's just
yeah.
happened. So if a guy has it, it's always a give and take of like getting him right to the edge and then pulling him back just a little bit. But I thought Graham, I don't see why he would potentially leave. So I think those four guys are for sure locks. I think Steele's a lock. He didn't play this year. He's going to get an extra year, extra year. He's coming off an ACL, so I don't see, what would be the point of coming to one place and then going.
Yeah, he's already said, too, I don't have the quote in front of me, but he's excited about getting back.
Yeah.
And I definitely, definitely.
He'd definitely help us. Luka Krajinovic, I think I really liked this game. Didn't play a ton of minutes, obviously, because our backcourt was terrific with Nembhard and Hickman. So the minutes were down. I think I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays. I know that's not a crazy take, but if he's getting told that he's going to play the 15 to 20 minutes as the third ball handler next year, he probably stays. If not, he probably leaves. So it's one of those deals where whatever the staff's saying to him, and I wouldn't hold it against him. It's always different for the European guys too. Because usually they have opportunities to go back home and play. It's not like they're going to be starting on the best EuroLeague team, but they'll probably be on one of the better mid-level teams, you know what I'm saying, or the B team, and then you can work your way up. So that's always the fallback. And then, people don't realize this, but I didn't realize it until Edie talked about it. The NIL is different for the European players. He's Canadian, and he couldn't get the NIL money because he's not a citizen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's some weird, and it's not an NCAA law. It's a U.S. law where if you're not a citizen, something to do with work visas or whatever. So you kind of felt bad for Edie, but it's also like, dude, it's just like immigration. I don't know what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a law. Like, it's nothing against you. It's call your congressman and hope. You know what I mean? Or it's like, hey, man, I mean, on the backside, it's like, hey, you should get dollars, but also you coming to school for free. You're staying in the country. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, no,
it's not the end of the world too,
right,
though.
For sure. Yeah, he's gonna do fine.
he's fine, but so that part with NIL with some of the European players or foreign players, I don't want to be like, Canada's not Europe, no shit. It's just different. June, I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves. I like June's game. I think he's terrific athletically. I think he's got a lot of potential. Couldn't sniff the court, fell out of favor. I don't know why. I kind of know why. He didn't play good when he had his opportunities, and that's not a knock. But and then when I say this, I'm not watching him every day in practice, so there's certain things that the staff looks for. It's not like they just pick a guy out and say, you're not playing. Like, they usually give guys opportunities, and you got to make the most of it. Or sometimes you're a good player and it's just not your time, like numbers wise.
Right.
It's just how it works. Like roster, like he's not as good as Rui. But remember, Rui barely played his freshman year, like barely.
Yeah, totally.
And Rui ended up being a lottery pick. But it was just like, we can't play you this year, bud. You know what I mean? We love you, and let's have a good time, and you're going to develop. But I can't put you in front of whoever he was behind. And it was like Snacks. I can't remember who he was behind, but you know what I mean. Remember that year?
Yeah, totally.
He barely played,
and then he came back and had like that's what is interesting about June. Only because like I know that he's a prospect, and I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed because his attitude on the bench was great.
Yeah,
and it would be really interesting to like see him come back and then like have a role on this team in this depth that we have.
Yeah, no, I think he's athletically extremely gifted. He's can make shots like pull-ups. I don't know how well he fit into the flow action and all the stuff that we run offensively, because it is different, and it's different to learn if you haven't played in it. So I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he left just because he didn't play.
Right.
Pavel Stosic, same thing as Luka, didn't play hardly at all. I don't think he's a bad player. I wouldn't be surprised if he left as well. If you're just sitting there saying, well, if we got Graham, Ben, and Braden in front of me next year, what's that going to look like? Mm-hmm. So I bet you and then we'll talk about Ajayi in a second. So those bottom three I just mentioned, probably I wouldn't be surprised if they left. Not saying I want them to, but they also could have a chance to, ascend and find a way into the role. Mm-hmm. Dusty Stromer's an interesting one. Had a great first half of the season, and then got moved out of the starting lineup, which I think benefited him and Ben and the team. Had some good games, some decent games. Role changed. I think he kind of looked a little bit tired in the later half of the season, and that's not a knock, but it is difficult when you go from playing high school and then high-level college. Body-wise, it is more difficult to maintain a fervor and an excellence defensively, because you got to guard in college. You don't, in high school you can take plays off and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so he's the one I'm really curious about, because he's going to have a role next year, but obviously Steele's coming back. But again, Steele's coming off an ACL, and I hadn't won my second year in the NBA, and it took me, I didn't feel right for about 18 months. Like, you're cleared after 6 or 9, but then they're like 12, you're like, you're fine. You don't feel completely right until about, I think, year and a half. I mean, Klay Thompson is a perfect example. Like, that first year and a half, like, what's wrong with him? It's like, he just had an ACL and an Achilles, and now he's playing pretty good. He's playing better, but it takes a while, and just mentally. So that's with the Steele stuff. I always have an asterisk by it. I think they should bring him along slowly, which they will. They did it with Graham this year because he came off foot injury. At the start of the season, remember, he was playing spottier minutes, and they really pulled him out early and did a good job of it. That's a skill set as a staff. I know that sounds funny, but a lot of staffs, let's just go out and play it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you got to really stick to the plan, and sometimes there'll be nights when you want to keep him out there longer, but you got to be disciplined and listen to your medical staff, and they did that this year. So I think it's going to be the same for Steele. So yeah, Dusty's an interesting one, man. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he's got a lot of upside. No matter if he stays or goes, hopefully he stays, and I mean that 1,000% because he'll help us. He's got to have a weight room summer, and that's not a knock. I'm a skinny guy too. I played at this level. I played about the same body type. He's got to have a weight room summer, just to improve, and it's got to be something that he buys into. And not that saying he's not, but it's got to be like, hey man, you got to put on like 8 to 10 muscle, and you got to be wiry strong. You don't have to come back, winning bodybuilding contests, but you got to have a weight room summer, man. It's just the reality of it, because he's getting pushed off his line a little bit, and it's a different physicality. And as a grown man or young man at the time, and this obviously too, you change from 19 to 20, and then 21, and then pounds start sticking a little bit. You know what I mean? So like 100%. You can make jumps, but you have to fall in love with it. So he's an interesting one. I'm just going to be completely frank. And then the one that's another interesting one, and I think he had a good experience, but again, you just never know. Is Braden Huff. Braden Huff was terrific off the bench for us. I think he's one of our better scorers. Played in, how many minutes did he average? We got it right here. He was probably in the 12 to 15s, wouldn't you say, off the top of our head?
Yep.
So let's see, 12. Yep, that's conference. Yeah, so he probably played 15 a night. Oh yeah, we got that back.
Yep.
My bad.
13 and a half. Yeah.
13 and a half. Okay, so not terrible. There's only so many minutes that can go around. We talked about the depth all year, being a short bench. I played 19 minutes a game my freshman year, and we had 6 seniors. I stole some minutes from some upperclassmen just on just how it worked out. So my point is, like, it's harder than you think, and sometimes you got to like really play well consistently to do that. And I thought he had terrific scoring games. I thought he was, again, one of our better low post scoring bigs. He could step out and shoot it. He's got pick and pop. You can hit him on the short roll. I love his touch around the rim. I like that he's a lefty. Lefties are different. So, I just get worried from the standpoint of that he was highly productive in short minutes that somebody else would make him a phone call.
Yeah.
That's what worries me. I think he loves the culture here. I think guys like him. I've never heard anything bad. I've talked to him a couple times, talked to his parents. Parents are really nice people, down to earth, kind of get the whole deal. I'm just, just being honest with transfer portal stuff. He would be a call for a lot of programs to be like, hey, come play 32 minutes a night. You know what I mean? So I think if he stays, which I knock on wood, again, I'm not trying to, make conjecture or do stuff without logical thinking. I think he'll play a ton with Anton leaving. I think he'll play 20, the old, back to the old Gonzaga kind of 3-man big deal where every guy plays 22 to 32 minutes. I think he would be in that mix where he'd play a ton and be really extremely productive for us. So I hope he stays. And again, I'm not going off of like something I heard. No, it's just like my opinion and kind of how the landscape of college basketball works and how people think. How do I put this? Like when Hunter transferred, people were like, why wouldn't he stay loyal? And and it was like, okay, he went here for 2 years and played, 17 minutes, I think the second year.
Yeah.
And he was going to play a ton this year, most likely, but they obviously brought in Steele and then Dusty. So like, we don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
People don't understand, like when you're a high level player, no matter what school you go to or what program, you're all thinking you can go to the NBA, right or wrong. Okay. It's true, right or wrong. And it's life-changing money if you can make it. It just is. So when people transfer, it's not always them just like taking extra money. They're thinking of the best path that they think to get to the NBA. So that's where part of, I think sometimes people need to slow down on, guys need to, this is BS. Why would you leave? Why would you? It's like, dude, they're trying to get to a place where they might get $100 million.
Yeah. I mean, just like
generational
money. Yeah.
So sometimes I'm not a huge fan of the portal, but also I get where some guys have that mindset. If you're a parent and you're sitting there going, oh, okay, my son only played 9 minutes in his sophomore year, like unless there's a huge drop off, they're thinking of other things and they're trying to get to a path that that's where I think some of the mindset when people leave comes from. I don't think it's ever a culture. It's not never. I know for a fact it's never a culture issue, never anything at Gonzaga. It's never toxic here. And I mean that. I can say that with, certainty. I think it's just sometimes if guys leave, they're thinking of how can I get to the next level?
It makes so much sense.
So it'll be interesting. I honestly hope that, those guys do not leave, and I'm not just saying that. They're all good kids. They're good players. But there's it's the portal. We got to talk about it, or we'd be disingenuous to our listeners. Like, it's a real possibility. So sit back and put your hands up and hope and cross your fingers.
Yeah.
And then just be interesting. And then we could talk about Ajayi.
Yeah.
Best kid on Pepperdine. Obviously, Romar got let go. So that was going to be a mass exodus of, their talent. Kid out of Tacoma that didn't really get recruited, played one or 2 years at a JUCO, and then went to Pepperdine. I think he's terrific. He's kind of a small 4, probably like 6'6", really strong, could shoot it well. I think he averaged like 14 and a half, something like that on a bad team, but looked good. Remember, he had a really good game against us in the arena. Didn't shoot it well, but remember, he had really good rebounds, and then he ended up with like 14, but like kind of a workman's like game. I know that sounds funny coming out of a Pepperdine. A workman's like that roster usually is not the one to like have that mantra.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in the mix. He averaged 17.
Yeah, 17.
17. So he's a terrific player.
Yeah.
I think he was first team all league in the West Coast Conference.
Shot 47% from the 3-point line.
Yeah. No, he's a small 4 that's kind of we use the term like an ass kicker, like a guy that's undersized but kind of just goes out and pushes people around and makes things happen. So he's going to be in the lineup, and it's kind of interesting to see if that moves the needle for the other guys.
Yeah,
is my point. So it's too early for me to see if he's where he fits in the lineup and all that stuff, because that'll be for episode 1 next season.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think he's going to fit in, but yeah, I mean it's obviously a gain to get him on our roster, and I'll just see where he fits in when I start watching practice. I don't know how to kind of do that right now. I think he's similar to Anton, but Ben Gray, you know what I'm saying? So we'll figure that out, and obviously the staff will figure it out. But a very good pickup, especially it's just so weird getting guys in conference now, though. It used to be if you transferred in conference, it was 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like nobody would ever do it.
No one ever did.
Yeah, never do it. So like it's just weird doing conference. Remember a few years ago, a kid went from San Diego to San Francisco, one of their bigs, and it was just weird seeing them on the next, very next year playing for like that's kind of their rival or whatever, one of the rivals.
I was actually wondering. I mean, I couldn't find anything. I don't know if we've had anyone transfer, and have we? Has there been anyone?
Dom Harris.
Oh, Dom Harris. Well, no, I meant to Gonzaga.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, there hasn't been. So kind of a first for him, and
yeah.
I've heard good things about him. Good kid from Tacoma that came out of nowhere, ascended just by playing well and got to this point. So good for him.
Oh.
And it's going to be interesting again, like I said, next year of who goes, where the roster fits and all that stuff. But again, it's something you have to talk about is portal and what does NIL do. Gonzaga's got a good NIL structure and base, but it's not as big as some of these Power Fives.
Yeah.
But it's not, I got to make sure I'm saying this right. We're not like left in the dust. But like, Texas will have more than us. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's like, that's obvious. So that'll affect maybe some guys' decisions down the road. And that's just the reality. But we are like in the neighborhood of being completely competitive in that area. So but you might get outbid for some certain guys. Like it's just how it is. I'm just always curious if you're going to be, you think you're going to be like a lottery pick and you're that type of kid or prospect, and you've been told that by the right people, like people that are actually not just draft boards that are just making shit up. Is making an extra $100,000 a year and then maybe playing in a not a great system that suits your game worth it? Because if the money's coming on the backside, what does it matter?
Right.
And I always use the Jalen and Chet reference, and I know NIL wasn't really around, but it was whispered. I think Jalen and Chet would have came here regardless because they knew the money was on the backside because they were playing in a pro system. They're playing in a culture.
Yeah.
Jalen averaged 14.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but he was
this is
terrific,
true.
but he averaged 14, but he knew he was playing in a pro system. He was playing dribble handoff, high ball screen, pass cut, floor space, short roll, the NBA style.
Yeah.
So he came here and just played well, and played well, and he was a lottery pick. Same with Chet. Chet could have gone somewhere else and got way more shots. There were some games where Chet would shoot like 8 times.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second, you know what I mean? But Drew was a high-level scorer, but Chet knew, like, playing a pro system, I'm going to get coached, and was the number 2 pick, and he's terrific. Yeah. So my point is, like, on some of this stuff, I hope the people around some of these kids understand, like, the money's coming on the backside, like, 50 grand, 100 grand difference. Yes, it's great money, but it's not life-changing. And that's not a knock. It's just a reality. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to tell that probably to a 19-year-old kid, 18, 19-year-old kid. Like, it's really not a lot of money, man. Like, I love you, but it's not. Like,
well, I think that's a great point to getting recruits and players to Gonzaga, because if you look at Chet, you look at Jalen, you look at Domus, like, there's so many.
BC, Rui.
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many.
Andrew, Corey. I mean, like, guys that the guys that didn't have the ball ran through them the whole entire time and got to shoot 1 million shots and just played in pro system, and then they look good in pro system. And they go, well, he can fit right away. It's a real value to it. So, when this portal stuff and NIL keeps, moving down the road, I think that's one of the selling points for Gonzaga. And it's valid. It's not bullshit. It's just like, hey, man, you want to play the right way and get coached the right way and look good in a pro system, you can come here, or you can go maybe somewhere else that's a bigger name, probably get more shots, but are you going to look as good? You know what I mean? And maybe get $50,000 more, big deal, cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting, again, like I said, as this stuff moves down the road. I imagine there'll be some changes. Hopefully the NCAA can get a little bit of grip on this. And whenever you say that, you always have to be like, it's not, I think kids should be able to make money, you know what I mean? Because whenever you counter against it, they're like, well, you think they should be getting nothing? It's like, no, but it's unrestricted free agent with no collective bargaining agreement right now.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So, like, it's like, just imagine the pros where you could just go wherever you want with no salary cap and you could talk whenever you want. You know what I'm saying? It's wild. So, like, we're not saying there shouldn't be mobility, but there's got to be, like, parameters. And I know there's not a union, and I know it's 15 different conferences or whatever.
Right.
But it's also like, this is literally like, if your pro team was just like, hey, next year I'm just going to go play for you, like, and then they still got a contract from somebody else and they can just leave. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
It's crazy. So it turns into, like, you're always constantly having to recruit your own guys, and then you're recruiting other guys 365, and it's just like, where's the loyalty? And loyalty, what I mean, not that you have to, like, completely take a massive pay cut or, like, be in a situation you don't want to be, but, like, there's got to be some loyalty to a coach and a player, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, Gino Auriemma had a great rant, not a rant, but he just commented on after a game one time on the girls' side, and he was talking, I think he was at St. John's, and they won a game, and he was just like, this guy's a really good coach I'm playing against, and all of his players are probably going to leave this year. And he's like, I'll get all of them. And he's just like, is that fair? And he's just like, it's not fair. He's just like,
it's not fair, yeah.
He's like, well, so what's the point of this guy grinding and turning these players into really good players 2-3 years, and then the year 4 and 5, I get them. And he's just like, it's crazy. And if the guy that's benefiting from it says it's kind of messed up, then it is.
Yeah.
I know it's on the girls' side, but it's the same thing on the guy's side.
Yeah, it creates a lot of imbalances.
It does.
And it will make the bigger blue blood
more powerful.
More powerful.
And that's what I don't understand. Like, I thought we, as a collective society, we're always against the big man, right? And shouldn't we, like, parity's a good thing?
Yeah.
I mean, the counter to that is ratings wise, like, everybody loves upsets the first 2 rounds, and then if you look at the numbers, like, people want the blue bloods chalk to prevail in the Sweet 16 and on, and the viewership shows that. But it'll be interesting as this thing moves down the line, what's going to happen and because it's not even NIL, it's just collectives. That's what's different.
Yeah.
When they say NIL, it's supposed to be that I go sign up with Walker's Furniture or Idaho Central Credit Union or whoever, and I go do a spot for them, and they get money because of me. A lot of these times it's just a flat collective. Here's a check,
right?
And they just make
here's
it's crazy. So I'm curious to see. And again, you always have to put this disclaimer. I think guys should make money. Yes, I think girls should make money in college sports. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but there's got to be some like guidelines, or it's just continues to be insane on how much you have to pay and what programs can survive, and then it just turns the pyramid gets smaller. You know what I mean? And then it's just always the big football schools continue to have all the leverage power money wise, and it's just like, okay, this is not fun for anybody. I don't know.
Yeah, I think if it gets to that level where it's just like every year it's another blue blood or another big, there needs to be some type of CBA, and that's
well
with all the schools.
Here's the funny thing. If you want to get into it a little bit deeper, I think it was University of Delaware. They voted to allow a union.
Yeah,
and a lot of people are like, yeah, finally the kids have rights. I'm like, secretly they're probably like, yeah, join a union because there's caps on every, you know what I'm saying? Like, join a union. Now we could CBA, you can only make $25,000. If you don't like it, don't play. You know what I mean? So it's like, they're probably like, yeah, join a union. Let's do this. And we'll steamroll you in the negotiations. And you won't even have scholarships, and you guys will fold in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's funny how it's almost flipped to the other side. Like,
totally.
Go ahead, man. Give us the union, so we can send you a 1099 every deal, and there's a cap, and then we could take payroll. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's just like it's like it's almost gotten to the reverse of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So anyway. After that long rant, it goes. The whole point was it goes into the fluidity of our roster and other rosters, and so hopefully all of our guys stay. But I'm just like, kind of like everybody else, like, cross your fingers. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully they understand the value that we bring as a staff and as a program, and schedule and attention and all that stuff's a real thing. And the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
But then again, devil's advocate. Parent, myself, like, if you don't think it's going right for your kid, you think of the avenue to get them to a place, like we said, you can make $100 million maybe. So like, you're like, you can't really knock that either. So it's curious.
I mean, so like, but as a player, I should ask, like, these way too early rankings came out, and we're in the top 10 or top 5 on a lot of lists, and I'm curious, like, the players that are going to be on the roster next year, like, wanting to win a championship has to like be something that drives them. Like, I feel like I look at this team, if I was a player in this team, I'd be like, I think Gonzaga has an amazing chance to win a championship. What is your like feelings behind that?
Yeah, so like a perfect example is Purdue. Everybody came back from last year, and they added Jones, but that was partly really rare of a program to do that, especially with a program with one guy that could score at high volume, so the other guys not get as many shots. That's what I'm trying to get at, and I mentioned that earlier. So it creates, chemistry and just the old continuity and all that stuff. So I think that is a realistic motivating force to come back to a place for guys, and it should be. But UConn replaced like 4 or 5 and just got right back into it.
Totally.
But that's part of that's culture. So I think it goes either way. But I'm with you. Like, I would want to do that. Obviously, in my era was different. It was like, hey, let's have a better season next year and let's make a run. That's a real thing. But you just never know nowadays, man.
Yeah.
I know. We keep going to that, and I wish I had a better analysis of. Why and how, but sometimes I'm just like, shrug my shoulders and put my palms in the air. Like, some guys just don't want to grind it out. And then again, the counter to that is like, what loyalty do you have to certain people? You know what I mean? Like, it's not all roses and rainbows all the time. And, you can't blame people for trying to move to a better situation. You do that for your kids too. Yeah. Everybody does it, and some, you get the rose petal glasses on. We all do it, and you know what I mean. So who knows? But I mean, I guess the next topic we got to get into, just real quick, is Calipari going to Arkansas. I think it's wild. I was crazy when I saw it. I get it. Why? Because I think the they were circling the wagons a little bit in Blue Blood Nation. Yeah. but they couldn't fire him. It was like a $30 million buyout, or like his contract was fully guaranteed, and that's what he was owed, like $33 million. So he was never going to get fired. But I think he probably wants to change the scenery and probably just wants to get ahead of the, I guess the word posse is a lot of times people use. Is that, I don't know if you can say that anymore, but people trying to get him fired. Or move on. And it was just wild when it came out. But the backstory to that, and people probably have heard this, he's really good friends with the heir to Tyson Foods, who's a Arkansas booster billionaire. And there's here I got $40 million. Why not?
Yeah.
And
some NIL money.
And we got NIL money.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where it just like the dominoes, go. But it's funny how, so Arkansas had Musselman, right? And then they had Enfield from USC. They have a shitty year.
Yeah.
He goes to SMU, which is kind of like a head scratcher. But SMU, not that SMU's bad, but they got NIL, but it's like, it's kind of a lateral move. And then Musselman had a bad year at Arkansas. He takes the USC job, and then it's just how the dominoes affect.
Totally.
You know what I mean? One guy leaves, and then everything, kind of falls. I always thought if Cal would leave, he wouldn't go in conference, because that's going to be crazy that he has to go into Rupp twice, maybe once a year at least.
Yeah.
And then play him in the tournament. That's going to be must-see TV just for
totally.
him wearing a red coat or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just going to be funny.
You just don't see it that much. Seeing a coach leave like one of the best programs in the in the nation.
It's a top 5 job easily, and you probably argue top 3.
Yeah.
Facilities, belief, money, former players, fan base. Like, you just go down the line like it's one of the best, and that's why they get so mad, because that's all it is down there, man. It's hoops and horses, man. And that's not it. I mean, we were down there. I thought it was great, man. The people were super nice. Wearing your Gonzaga stuff out, and like people are really nice, and there's nice people in the South, but they love Kentucky hoops, man. If they don't win, they're like, fire his ass. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Took a million Ubers. I always do when I'm, out of town, and people see, oh yeah, and then they're just like, everybody had opinion on Cal. I think he's a great recruiter, can't coach. And then some guys, he could coach. He's just not the guys. He needs to get older guys. And then, I'm not kidding. Every Uber ride was, they talked about Kentucky for the 10 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, man, yeah. You know what I mean? After a while, you're like, shut up, I don't care. So he's polarizing that area, but I'll be curious to see if he or who takes that job. There was something floating out yesterday that they would call Fewey. They're going to call every high major coach.
Yeah.
I don't foresee Fewey ever leaving, but that's not for me. You never know what somebody comes to say. You want $10 million a year, and you're like, shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a call, but I don't think he would ever leave it unless it's an offer like that. So I think the candidate for that job is Billy Donovan. Makes the most sense. Played for Pitino.
Oh yeah.
Won 2 national championships at Florida. Went to the NBA. Understands that language, right? Because that's the kind of kids you're going to get at Kentucky. You could still get the kids, is what I'm saying. And then you can go back to college and have full control, and somebody that's proven it, done it, won. He's been in the NBA, hasn't been great, but it's not a dumpster fire. He hasn't been terrible. You know what I mean? The NBA is hard, man. Like, sometimes it's just your roster. I mean, you can coach, everybody runs the same actions, and, obviously you control substitution patterns and stuff like that, but you're kind of a manager of like managing personalities and stuff like that. Like, everybody runs the same shit. They do. You know what I mean? So like, it's like, okay. So I think that's a guy that I would call if I'm them. I think Brad Stevens is another one. I know he's been out of it a while, and he's upstairs now with the Celtics, but he makes sense on a guy that's big enough name that the pressure stuff wouldn't phase him.
Could go there and probably coach for 20 years too.
Exactly. So exactly, he's still young in that regards, but also like, I think once you get upstairs in those GM roles, and especially how well constructed the Celtics are, like, it won't be his fault if they don't win the finals. So like, he's got the complete like put your feet on your desk and like, because he's constructed a great roster.
Totally.
Like, what do you want me to do? You know what I mean? Like everybody's got max deals. They're all-star. You know what I mean? Like now they got to go win. It'd be hard to leave that security and where you don't have to like fly in planes and go talk to boosters and you just go watch NBA games and then scout guys. Like it's a pretty good gig, and you probably get $1 million a year, 2 million, whatever those guys make. You know what I mean? Like, and you're 0-0 every year. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. Okay, you know. So that'll be interesting. I heard Jay Wright. I don't know why Jay Wright would leave TV, and he got out of it because of all the stuff like the NIL and stuff. But it's different at Villanova, obviously, compared to Kentucky. So I my guess would be Billy Donovan would be the number one, just because the ties. He's still young enough. He's a big name, and he's from the NBA, so he has got that. Hey, I can get you to the league type of deal. You know what I mean? When you go talk to those type of kids, like I know what I've just coached there for 10 years or whatever. He's been 12 years.
Yeah.
Come play for me. I'll show you how to get there. You know what I mean? That's a real thing. But yeah, just crazy because we're playing them. I think we're playing them next year.
Yeah, we're playing from the next
4 years.
4 years,
yeah.
We play them in Seattle next year. We play them in Nashville, and then we play them back at Rupp, and then we play them in the Kennel in the last year. So 4 more years of Kentucky. So we'll
sweet.
Be facing them.
We'll find out who the coach is, that was crazy news, and I know how this stuff works, and stuff gets out of, but I wish the timeline was a little bit different. They announced it like during the Final Four. Like, you know what I mean?
It's
like,
all about the
news
cycle.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I understand, but you're just like, dang it, man. Like, just let it happen and then announce on Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then whatever. But maybe they did that too, so it would get a little bit buried because you still got to talk about the Final Four. But it's wild how the coaching carousel and all that stuff works, man. It's a crazy business, but at a place like Kentucky, you can win right away. Obviously, you got all the resources, and then they're going to pay you north of $5 million minimum a year.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like if somebody's like, what about loyalty? It's like, I'm on a bank account, right?
That'd be hard to turn down.
Yeah, exactly.
for anyone,
for anybody. It's just like, okay, we got a listener question to wrap up.
So we got the perimeter. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, it's Olive. I just got my first ICCU debit card. Now I just need some money in my account. If only there was someone who could transfer in some allowance.
Wow.
We got a listener question to wrap up.
So we got 4 listener questions to kind of the most common question we always get at the end of the season is, will this be the year Mark Few leaves Gonzaga? And I mean, I think that's an easy.
No, I don't. Yeah. He's turned down multiple jobs.
Yeah.
In the past, and in the sphere behind the news sphere. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Just honest answer. I don't think so.
Yeah. Next question is, with Anton Watson leaving, graduating, or his 5th year, he has a path to the NBA.
He does.
Who is his NBA comp?
So he's going to have to be a 3-and-D guy. What I mean by that, he's got to play. He's going to have to guard perimeters and maybe small fours, be able to switch all actions, and then he's got to make corner threes, be like a floor spacer on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
Honestly, like a PJ Tucker, and PJ Tucker's really good at it.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to. And this is going to sound funny, but like. You're gonna have to be willing for like Kevin Durant and like Devin Booker and those guys to score 40 on you some nights.
Yeah.
And you have to play hard every single possession, but they're so talented. But you have to be like locked in every single play defensively.
Yeah.
And then on the offensive end, you got to shoot 40% corner threes.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna stick you in the corner and just use you as a floor spacer. And teams will, and screen roll action will come tag off you. You got to be able to make 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
And have 12 points. You know what I'm saying? That way, but not touch the ball hardly. So he has that body, shooting touch. I think he's more skilled than PJ is a ball handler, but you're not going to get much in the league. I mean that it's just there's certain guys that get the ball, and the guys that are getting $25 million are going to shoot pull-up jumpers. You don't get to shoot them, right? It's just how it works. Yeah. Like, or he gets to shoot 18 of them. You might get to shoot 2 of them. So I think he has a legitimate chance. It's not me saying that because you see, he had a great career here. He's a local kid. Did a good job of managing being the local kid at Gonzaga. There's only been a few that ended up playing. I think the last one was before him was David Stockton, who was a walk-on but earned his way on.
Yeah.
And then before that, it was myself and Sean Mallon.
Yeah.
That's a big gap. It's not very many locals that, make the team and play. Mm-hmm. So there is a anxiety, not an anxiety, but there's a real pressure of performing and being good when you come here because everybody knows you and all those things. And they watched you in high school and then they have expectations that maybe, aren't valid. Mm-hmm. But Anton has legitimately moved into an NBA prospect. And I mean that 100%. Beginning of half of last year and then this year, he's got to be in tremendous shape, like better shape than he is now. Not that he's in shitty, but you go from college to the NBA, you're like, oh, I wasn't really in shape in college. Like you do. Yeah. It's crazy. You get into these pre-draft workouts and you work with a trainer and you like really hammer down. You're like, I wasn't even in shape. This is crazy, And then he's got to be like dialed into just playing defense and guarding the best players, wings. Usually the best players are wings, wing scorers. And then, like I said, he's got to make corner three. So I think he has a legitimate chance. I think he's going to get multiple cracks at it if he doesn't get drafted too, which is great. Like he can be a guy that if he doesn't make a team, go play in Europe or play in the G League in the next year, go on a different summer league team, he'll get a lot of it's going to be where he lands. That's for a lot of guys. But if he gets on a team where he could be the 9th guy, 8th guy that plays defense and then obviously has success, then you can move into a really talented starting lineup where you're the defensive guy. The kid from UW, Feibel or whatever, who had played at UW but was on the Sixers. I don't know where he is at now. A few years ago, he was similar to Anton.
Oh yeah,
Anton's bigger, but like good scorer, but not a like elite crazy scorer, but good enough. But like he's in the league to go play defense and make corner threes. That's a real position. Yeah. So he has a legitimate chance, and I mean that 100%. I think he's got a shot, but he's got to, like I said, he's got to like buy into the weight room. He's got to buy into mentality, because there's going to be nights where a guy scores 50 and there's nothing you can do. It's the NBA,
right?
And you have to like get through screens, and you can't. You know what I mean? You have to be like locked in. You watch PJ Tucker, and like there's nights where guys like hitting fadeaways in his face, and he just always claps. Dang it was good defense, but he's locked into it all the time.
And people are going to score on you in the NBA.
100%. And you're playing against the guys that are making all the money and getting all the calls too. So you're going to you battle that a little bit too. But yeah, I think he has a legitimate chance.
Yeah. Who was your MVP of this Gonzaga season?
That's a great point. I think it's split. I think Nembhard halfway. The second half was our MVP because he really slowed down, and his assist to turnover ratio was fantastic. He turned it up, scoring the basketball. He started shooting it better about halfway through, because the first half of the season he wasn't great, and his numbers showed that, and that's just the truth. And he'd probably say the same thing. But he really started to slow down, make better decisions, take better shots, and then he was terrific assist to turnover, just like the stuff you want point guards to do. So I was really impressed with how he played in the second half. You could put Graham into that category too, second half. But it's funny, as our two transfer guys, they finally got comfortable and acclimated to the system. Then they started playing really a lot better. And then probably Ben Gregg would be in that category too, just because he gave us that spark of energy, and he had some big games for us, and making that change when he got into the starting lineup kind of flipped how we looked this year. So I know that's not one person, but I think it's like they're mostly second half awards because we weren't terrific in the first.
That's fair.
Yeah. So like I think Andrew the most, but I think Graham and Ben were terrific too in the second half.
Yeah. I think that's what makes me so excited for next season, and that's kind of leads me to my last question: is who has the most upside coming into the next season?
Braden Huff.
Yeah.
I think Braden Huff, if he continues to make another jump, because he made a jump obviously last year coming off a red shirt, because he had good numbers in short minutes. If he gets the 22 to 28, like I said, minutes, I think he has the most upside to be like a 15-point to 15 to 20 point game score.
Yeah.
I think he just has that skill set. We just hope, like we talked about at length, of if he stays or not. I think he will, but yeah, I think he has the most upside, and terrific player and good kid. And like I said, super skilled, which we always need, and he can stretch the floor, which I like most about his game is the pick and pop aspect. It makes teams play differently on your pick and roll coverages.
Yeah.
It's not just short roll. So I think he has the most upside for anybody that's coming back. I think Dusty too, but like I said, he's got to have a weight room summer. So yeah, we got a lot of good stuff to look forward to next season. If most of the guys come back, that's the big if.
Yeah. Because we even talked about. I mean, and we don't really. I don't really know about it, and you don't. I don't think you really know much about it either. The freshman recruiting class, like, I mean, we'll talk. I was talking about that next season, but it's just there's so much that can happen this next 6 months.
I know.
It's become like. It's become fun to like pay attention to and like actually like.
Well, it turns into
in.
kind of a longer sport. The season's longer, if that makes sense. Like you have to pay attention longer. You know what I mean? Because the incoming freshman classes are usually smaller because people hit the portal. So yeah, it's curious to see what's going to happen. But I think we have great upside for next year, and we'll have continuity, which is different from this year, and guys will be fine with playing with each other and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. I thought this was a terrific season, like I mentioned in the opener. Proud of the guys. It was rocky in the sense of from the outside world season. I thought our guys did a good job of figuring it out and making another run. And again, we ran into a buzzsaw, but 9 straight Sweet 16s is terrific, and I'm looking forward to next season. And hopefully the roster looks pretty similar, and we can build off the being together and chemistry and the stuff that we did this season going into next. So yeah, man, do you got any final thoughts?
No, I've been like always. It's been such a pleasure to do this podcast with you, and got to shout out our sponsors like McGillivray Environmental that were with us from the very beginning. Thank you. Big shout out to Kip.
Kip's awesome guy, one of my good buddies. Great dude. Big Gonzaga booster. Does a lot for the program behind the scenes. Just overall good person too. So we appreciate him helping us out.
Idaho Central Credit Union, they hopped on board at the very beginning of the season. It was great to have them as a supporting sponsor. And then Joshua Hassong with HDG Architecture also came in and supported us. And we can't do the show without sponsors.
100%. Yeah, so we really appreciate it. Obviously, pays the bills, and it's nice that people believe in the show and believe in the topics that we talk about. It's not just completely homer college basketball, but they understand that we give them a different perspective than I guess some of the other podcasts, whatever. I appreciate the sponsors as well. McGillivray Environmental, like you said, Idaho Central Credit Union, HDG Architecture. That was always hard for me to say. Remember at the start, I had to really work on that one just because the H and the D don't roll off. D to G too is kind of hard if you say it too fast. But those guys were great. I appreciate you, Brennan, helping us out. Hopefully we'll be back next year. Thanks for listening.
Yep.